unlisted, so no one can find it without the link. So there were a couple that said, I can't make it, but please. I know I do this each time, but I think it's really helpful to introduce, especially for Mike, who joined us in January. So we did meet in the fall. Some of us were there. Most of you, I think, were there. But Mike is new to us, starting in January. So it would be really great if you could introduce yourself and where you're at, what you do, maybe what your doctorate is in, and anything you want to say about kind of the student. There's a mix. A couple of you have graduating students, people who are finishing now, and a few of you have people who are going to continue into the next year, and we'll talk about all that. So yeah, just curious if somebody wants to kick it off and say who you are and all that. That would be awesome.
Well, I'll go. My name is Phil Green. I got my Doctorate of Ministry and Pastoral Leadership from Dallas Theological Seminary in 2001. And I'm a pastor in Central Kansas, Lyons, Kansas, and we're just recently seeing a lot of young families become a part of our church, and baptized some new believers just a week ago Sunday, so that was fun. And so we're beginning to see some fruit from the ministry and really enjoying that. I'm mentoring a man who just started pastoring a church, his first pastorate. He's in of course, the Tabor Master's program in the ministry area. But his project is a community garden focusing primarily on servicemen, especially those suffering with PTSD. But he's broadened that beyond just servicemen, but just trying to reach the community. And so that's been kind of exciting to work with him on that. But also, as he starts his first pastorate, to come alongside and cry with him a few times and rejoice with him at other times. I told him this morning, I wish there was a way that us pastors could skip the first year or two and go right into more experience, but all of us have to go through it. So, but it's been fun working with him.
Excellent. Thanks, Phil. Who wants to go next?
I'm Rick McKinney, and I'm just finishing up with a student who's been with me for 4 semesters now, Tony. And his project has to do with, it's gone through a couple of different iterations really, but it's called Ecclesia at this point. It has been called Communitas, but it's a community small group kind of situation where he's taking people who don't know each other at all into this small group, and over a period of time forming community with them, hopefully introducing them to faith if they're not people of faith beforehand, exposing them at least to the gospel. He actually ran a prototype of this for part of his project, and it went very well, and so he's made some adjustments in that. So I'm kind of sad to see Tony go, but I'm looking forward to whoever's next. And he's getting ready to participate in a church plant, which probably will happen sometime in the next 12 months. So it's kind of exciting. I'm near Cincinnati, Ohio, just across the river in Kentucky. And I got my DMin from George Fox with Lynn Sweet in future studies. And so I'm glad to be part of the program.
Thanks, Rick.
I guess I should take a turn since I'm the new guy. I'm Mike McNichols. I'm in Southern California, Orange County. I work for Fuller Theological Seminary. I direct their regional campus in Irvine, and I also do some teaching for them. I also did my doctorate of ministry at George Fox, now Portland Seminary. Rick and I, that's how we met. We were cohort brothers in that program with Len Sweet called Leadership in the Emerging Culture, as I recall. Really enjoyed that. And my student is brand new. She started just in January as well. And so we're hitting the ground running together. Her name's Anastasia. I really like her. She's interested in developing her writing skills. Her project is focused on developing a devotional book for young mothers with young kids. And that's kind of her area of life right now. And so she relates very strongly. And so I've really enjoyed working with her in this. It's been a lot of fun. I guess we'll be doing this for quite some time.
Yes, you'll overlap in three cohorts of people along the way because of the
Yeah.
January start. It'll be great. It'll be great.
Yeah. Okay.
So Rick, I'll go. My name is Brad Briscoe. I'm in Kansas City. So I work for what's called the North American Mission Board in the area of church planting. I did a DMin about 10 years ago, kind of in the area of missional ecclesiology. It's funny, Mike, I taught a DMin seminar at Fuller about 4 weeks ago. So of course, very much appreciate Fuller and Dr. Laberton.
I thought I had just seen your name somewhere. I kept trying to figure out what it was.
It was a theology. It was called The Theology and Practice of Place. Student's name is David Wallstead. He is working on developing an NGO in Uganda, and we just finished second term. And I know, of course, Rick knows David, but just couldn't be more impressed with him and just the quality of work that he does. So it's been a lot of fun for me.
Thanks.
I can go.
Rick,
I'm Nate Yoder. I'm in Fresno, California, and so not too far from Mike. Very close to where Rick used to pastor. And I have a doctorate. I got my DMin from Denver Seminary in the area of church and parachurch leadership. I currently serve with Mennonite Central Committee, and before that I pastored some churches and also was a regional leader for a season as well. This is my second semester, first student, Mefsvin, who is from Kansas City area. He's from Ethiopia, a first generation person here in the U.S., and his project is on really helping the first generation and then the children interacting, bridging some of that cultural divide, helping them understand each other. And it's been good. I've been just very pleased and encouraged how he has went from really being very unsure of himself to actually initiating some very good ideas, some good adjustments along the way. So it's been fun.
Great. Thank you. David, were you going to go next? I think you had unmuted there a second ago. Or you're frozen. So maybe somebody else can go. It looks like he's frozen.
Dissertation topic was emerging
Oops.
I can't remember. And Feister, is that how you pronounce it, Rick? I've talked to him and I even forgot how to pronounce his last name. It's weird. It's a little different spelling, but so
Sorry, David. We're not catching you. You're really breaking up a lot. So
I'm gonna back off and come back in because I got a bad connection.
Yeah, that could be, or mute
My
your
Wi-Fi is
video or
not.
something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Zoom is usually awesome, way better than Skype, but sometimes it doesn't always work great like it should. All right. Are you with David? Are you here? It looks. Oh no, he hasn't logged out. Okay. Scott, Joe, one of you want to go?
I'll go. I'm Scott Ramsey. I am in Southern California as well. I currently live in Grand Terrace, which nobody knows where that is, but it's in between Riverside and San Bernardino, the IE. This is my second experience as a mentor, my second student. I have Edie, and her project is centered around a leadership development program for young adults in the workplace. She comes from an Anglican background spiritually, and she is taking a lot of her emphasis from an Anglican program that she has heard a lot about. So she's been doing a lot of research from that, saying, how can I apply this in a kind of a rural setting. She personally works for in the agricultural community of Kansas. And so she's trying to do a lot of, leadership development and mentoring and discipleship of people, of young people, really focusing on the doctrine of vocation, and for young people to understand their place in the world from a biblical and theological standpoint. So this is the end of her second semester, and I'm very impressed with her. I don't have to do a whole lot of, I do mostly coaching with her, which is something that I do. Vocationally and personally, I am a chaplain and bereavement coordinator for a hospice in this area. I've been doing hospice work for about 8 years. I was in the ministry in a church setting for many years before that as a youth pastor and adult ministries pastor. I did my DMin with George Fox, with Len Sweet, and my concentration was on leadership development of millennials. So that's kind of what I do. And I do life coaching, career coaching on the side as well, primarily now being used by my denomination. I'm with the Wesleyan denomination, and I coach church planters. So right now I'm coaching a church planter who's planted a church in Sacramento, so in that area. So that's what I do on the side as well. So yeah, love being a part of this program.
Thanks, Scott. David, it looks like you're back. Why don't you go ahead next?
Yeah, let me try that again. I had connected to the wrong Wi-Fi network, which is never good. David Phillips, outside of Atlanta, Georgia, finishing up with a guy who's planting a church in South Dakota, in Rapid City, and just got assessed and did all that fun stuff that he had to do. And John did a really good job. Really proud of the work. It was fun because it took me back to a couple of church restarts that I'd done a few years ago, and I'm working now to help a church in a church plant that's launching in about 90 days in West Georgia. So it was kind of nice to have all that tie back in together, and it was also nice. John asked me to be one of his founding elders. I had not heard really of that before, but I guess that's something in the Mennonite group, Mennonite Brethren. So I get to kind of continue to be part of his launch for the next couple of years, in addition to working with him on this church plant. So
very cool. And your doctorate was in?
So leadership in emerging culture. Did my dissertation at George Fox, looking at emerging brain science and behavioral change.
Thank you. Now, Joe, you're up.
All right. Joe Skillen, currently coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm a lead pastor at a Presbyterian church here, where we just debated about Paedo Communion at Presbytery. It's about as exciting as it sounds with the name. I am working with Jeremiah Jones, and he is, it's kind of a cool semester for him. He's dealing with stuff from his past and looking towards his future. He just took a new job in the Tulsa area at a church, and so he is a creative guy, and he does some stunning work. He's a worship leader, but he also does podcasting and video making. You guys have probably had him in a class if you're teaching some of the coursework with the program. But he's cool. He actually got to teach a seminar at a worship conference called The Art of Conflict, and just taking a look at how artistic people, creative types, how they get in conflict and how they can deal with that in a cross-shaped way. And probably a cool thing that's going to happen for him, he loves the Gettys, kind of these modern-day hymn writers that we sing some of their songs. They've got really interesting atonement theology, but nevertheless, they're going to actually be at the Presbytery meeting for my Presbytery in October. And so I'm trying to arrange for Jeremiah to come down and to spend time with the Gettys. So it's going to be kind of cool. I did my doctoral work at George Fox, Seems to be a trend for most of us here on this call, but it wasn't with Lynn Sweet. It was just a spiritual formation program, and the broad topic was evangelical spiritual formation. So that's me. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Yes, there was a beginning when I was first putting this program together. There were already adjuncts at Tabor, like Phil, that I was able to connect with, and then others that I just got the word out with the George Fox links. So for those of you that aren't, it was because of connections and networks. But actually, it's spreading, and some of the people who aren't able to be here have other degrees. So it isn't just a George Fox club. Although we all have our T-shirt on underneath our shirts, right? Of course. No. As you're sharing, I just want to bring your attention to a few things that I think are interesting about the program in general. And then I want to talk specifically as we come to the end of the term, and we won't go super long. I just want to kind of make sure that you're clued in on expectations and grading and that kind of stuff. But there's a few things that I've noticed now. We're in our 4th cohort, coming to the end. Cohort 3 is graduating, so we've been going for 6 years. And as or 5 years, as we're coming to the end of this cohort, there's something that's coming up, and Joe kind of touched on it when he was talking about Jeremiah. But actually, as I look around, at all of you, every one of your people sort of represents this as well. And I say this, just to put it out there, that the folks that are coming to us are people who are creative, artistic, maybe just a little bit different from a tie-wearing seminary directed type of person. If you get my caricature, right? It's like someone who's like, I'm going to be a pastor. That's my dream. That's my plan all the way along. And those people are choosing, rightly so, to go to Dallas or Denver or George Fox or wherever and do a typical degree. The folks that we're getting, that you're working with, tend to be people who have never thought of doing a master's program. Maybe God's calling them later into life, into ministry, or they got into ministry. I'm thinking of David, Brad, who got into ministry, got going, is now well established and way down the road, and doesn't have, just basically has a bachelor's degree. And suddenly, people are saying, hey man, you're 50, whatever, you really should have a master. So it's an interesting kind of dynamic, and it's fantastic with the different students. Mesfin brings an amazing, connection to our group as well with the Ethiopian experience. He moved here as a teenager, so he has lots of experience of, being a boy growing up in that context. So it's just an interesting kind of thing that's happening in our kind of world as we think through, who's coming and what's connecting. And I guess I just tell you that to say it's interesting. It feels to me like we're finding a niche, but it's not going to be a massive niche. It's not going to be, hundreds and thousands of people that will choose to go to, Fuller and other places. But I think there is a kind of group of people for whom this is a really cool thing. And the community and the networking and things that happen, that's just one thing. And then the other piece that I think is important to note is, and a couple of you picked this up, is it's okay for your student along the way to be unsure. There are definitely people like David, that, Brad, that are like, I'm starting the NGO. I've already been in Uganda. I've already got connections. I bought land. I'm going there in 2 weeks. Man, driving down the road. But someone like Mesfin or Tony, you were talking about, Rick, who are trying to figure this out. It's okay. It's totally fine. And I keep telling the students that too. I'm asking them continually, like the students who are in cohort 4 of yours on Thursday night will be live, and they have to present their project up to this point. And some of them I know are really sweating it because they're thinking, I have no idea what it is. And I will tell them, that's fine. Give us something, give us a direction. Things change in the next year, and that's totally fine. And those of you that have done this already, Scott, you could tell us, great stories about your experience with a cohort 1 person who just totally radically shifted and went a different direction. And that's to be expected. And that's, don't feel like you're doing anything wrong if they aren't nailed down, tracked in, at this point. It's totally fine. And so, yeah, I just think that's helpful, just by way of giving you more global. Like you're really focused on your particular person, rightly so. Maybe what I can help is just provide that little bit of global picture in that way. Then the last thing before we answer any questions or whatever, I just wanted to also say is, I saw some of you, your eyes lit up a little bit when people were talking about some different things. I hope that if someone said something that their research area would help your student, feel free. I'm sure any of us would be willing to help share and give some resources or insight or whatever. And if you can either connect here via the chat and get each other's emails, or just email me and I'll pass it on. It's, no problem. Happy to do that. Because I just kind of heard, and I know as well what's happening, and just could see some maybe connections between some of the things you've been doing and some of your students. So I wanted to give mainly time tonight, besides that little bit of an overview, just to see, as you're looking at the final, as you're grading the final piece, is there anything that you're, wondering about? Essentially, all I'm looking for, I'll tell you what I'm looking for, is just for you to email me and say, Susie did great, she got a B+. Joe did great, give him an A, whatever. So I don't need the paper unless it's a cohort 3 person, and then I do want their paper because I want to keep an archive of their final work. But for those of you that have cohort 4 students, just a final grade is all I need. But just curious, any questions, any wonderings, any thoughts that you have on that? Take some time right now to do that.
Well, just a quick question. I don't know if my student's a cohort 3 or 4 or 2 or 1 or what. How do I know?
I can tell you, yours is in cohort 4. I suppose there are 4 students in cohort 3 who will be graduating. So for them, they know that they're getting everything done. They actually had to have their final project to their advisor on April 29th, I think it was, right, Rick? Or David? Okay, yeah. So sorry. So they would know, I guess, the rest of you. Yeah, your person is in cohort 4. Sorry, Rick. Sorry about that, Phil. Yeah, good question.
Rick, something that I would just be curious, and it's maybe my ignorance at this point, but it would be kind of helpful for me to each semester see the landscape of my students' coursework. For me to have a little bit more, because there's times in our talks that I specifically ask my student all the time, so what are you doing in your other coursework? Okay. How can that be integrated into your project and what we're talking about? So it'd be kind of helpful to kind of get their schedule and the landscape of I don't necessarily have to have the syllabi necessarily, but just know kind of the subjects and the topics, because I think that would be helpful to help them integrate whatever they're learning in their other classes into their project and what they're doing. Be a little bit more, intentional about that. That's
a fantastic point, Scott. Thank you. Yeah, and that's easily done. I just have never thought about it, but yeah, why not? Cool. Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. No, great point. I've got that on my list. Thank you. Well, I won't belabor it. I'm part of the reason why there's so much freedom is we're all doctoral people. We know we know how things work. So I'll leave it with you. I will just say that due dates for grades for cohort 3. Actually, all of you have turned yours in. So for those of you who haven't submitted a grade, if I could get those, the last day of class is May 13th. So you have 2 weeks after that, but the sooner the better. But you have 2 weeks after May 13th to submit your grade for your student. Rick and David already have turned theirs in, and so have the other people for the people who are graduating. So we're good there. And then there is no summer mentoring. I mean, if you want to connect, feel free. It's up to you. But there's no expectation for you to do that. If you really want to get involved, you can talk to Joe. He'll be teaching the class that they're taking through the summer, and maybe you can throw some emails his way or something for content, whatever. I'm just kidding. But yeah, there's no expectation for that, for any kind of connection. And we'll pick back up the 9th of September, but I will send you syllabi and all that kind of stuff for the fall. Just so you know as well, the international trip that the new students will be going on, will be going to Paris. We are connecting with a missionary who's actually from this area, was in Hillsborough, Kansas for a while, who is working with North Africans. So they're doing some English language stuff and trying to kind of connect with Muslims basically in the city of Paris. So we'll be connecting with them, people from Greater Europe Mission, some friends of mine from my time when I was with Youth for Christ in the UK, who now have moved and are planting churches in Paris. So that'll be fun to see some of my old buddies. And so that will be 10 days, June 3rd to 13th, we'll be in Paris with the group. And that always is something, just thinking ahead for yourselves, where God really transforms, and some of the clarity comes after that trip. So you may see a different person in the fall with a lot more focus on what there's all this chaotic thoughts and dreams, and sort of, I think God's doing this. It really seems to come together on that trip. So hopefully that will happen again for all of your folks who are still looking for that. So would appreciate your prayers for that. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah. Are they when's graduation, and will there be a live stream by chance?
Graduation is Saturday, the 19th of May. And
Okay.
Yes, there is a live stream, and I will add that to my list, and I will make sure that you get an email with the live stream for that. Yeah, there definitely is.
I'd love to be able to come, but won't be able to make it.
I should say, just on that little note, if you ever do want to come, you're very welcome as an adjunct to walk with us with all the regalia and all that kind of stuff if you want to do that. So I've had other Christian ministry adjuncts walk with us. So anyway, since you brought it up, I'll send that link out though. Great, thanks. I was also told now I'm getting down to the very bottom of my list. Gina mentioned to me, if you haven't turned in your NOA for spring, please make sure you get that in. And then when you submit the grades, I guess this goes back to when do you give me your grade? When the grades are all together, when everyone submitted their grades, and then I enter them into the Tabor system, then the checks go out. So just know that part. And the contracts for fall will be coming. And then just a reminder to check your Tabor email. I tried to email all of you on your personal emails for this meeting, but yeah, we do also tend to send stuff to your Tabor email as well. I was just curious, for those of you that have people finishing, what's maybe a challenge or a joy that you have for Rick or David? What's something that you're just, as they're wrapping up, that it's just been so cool?
Well, John has resigned his church. He was doing student ministry, and so he's basically let them know that he's going to be planting, and but he's going to be working with a Habitat for Humanity, building some houses in the preparation of finishing up his launch group and all that kind of stuff, and his whole, the goal of where he's wanting to plant in an area where he's wanting to impact, in an area where it's on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, and so just him even thinking about being a live oak planter is really kind of cool, because people want to be the hero church planter, and so it's nice to see that mentality flow out of him as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just say, and it's kind of neat because I think David's student is working with my student on the church plant. So it's I've kind of by osmosis gotten some of John's stuff mixed in with our stuff. But it is kind of neat to see these young guys who one have kind of paid the price the last couple of years, married and working these jobs. And Tony's been working at a grocery store long hours and then still working with his school. And it's encouraging to me to see, we hear about this generation that doesn't have any work ethic and doesn't really care too much about anything. It's really encouraging to me to see how much effort these guys have put into this program and how many hours they've been willing to sacrifice, plus doing all their church stuff on the side. So it's just encouraging me to see there is hope for that generation, and there are some guys in there who are really, really serious about serving the kingdom. So, yeah.
That's great. That's very cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, David, I'm just excited because I had John for the first year as his mentor, and I'm glad to hear that he's finally pulled the trigger and is going for it because initially he wasn't too sure. I mean, he thought he wanted to, but really had to explore a lot of things. But I'm glad he's been through assessment and has announced to his church that he's going to plant a church, and it's just exciting for me to see him moving forward with all that.
Yeah, it was when Rick put us together, I told him, I said, I used to do church planner assessments for about 7 years, and I said, so you can go through my assessment and then you can go through the Mennonite assessment, and you should be ready to go if we both give you the green light. So he got probably his highest score is the Mennonite group can give was C2C, I think is so. Pretty much they said, once you have your plan together, go for it. And they're flying him to conferences and doing all this kind of stuff. They're really making a huge investment in him.
Yeah, I knew he was, I assessed for a while for the Evangelical Free Church, and I knew this was a young man that would probably do well in a good assessment. And so it's just good to hear.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's very, very cool. It's very rewarding. This group of grads, this year are just incredible. So it's really, really fun. So it's been great. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you. I also want to respect your time, and so I will let you go. Thank you very much for making the time to do this. If you have any questions, in the next few weeks, please let me know, and I'll be happy to answer those. I've noticed a couple of you unmuted. Are you just unmuting to say goodbye, or did you have a quick question? Okay, just say, all right. Bless you. Have a great night. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. See you later.
Okay.